Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say hello and welcome to a fresh, brand new edition of the program Ashford Garley Live on British Radio Africa. As always, Father God, want to give you praise. Want to say thank you. Want to magnify your name. Want to glorify your name. Lord Jesus, we are grateful to you. In the name of Jesus, we have given thanks. Some heard the name, some heard people talk about him. You've gotten the opportunity tonight to match the face, voice, and name. The mastermind, the doctor of love, the medicine of the microphone, the golden voice of radio, the broadcast commissioner, Africa's media dobe extraordinaire. Gira setukpayege, zebwamplora na jako me ochiraji. You wouldn't know muzu, and one ye mad double to dry, adro adiwapo. He doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than a lion. Yours truly, Ashford the Giant, the now you know me Garlet. Welcome to the show. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. But before we begin introducing the panelists, let us take time out to say hi to Abi Brian Brianman. It's a long time. Samuel Tamba Goy, Rose Wood, Tony and Brooks, and the Woodberg, though by the rest of the crew. Let us begin with Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts. Welcome to the show. How was your weekend, Letty?
My weekend was great. Good evening, my fellow Liberians. Good evening, Bridge Radio Africa. To my
Good
panel,
evening.
my fellow
Good
panelists,
evening.
I hope you had a wonderful weekend as well. Welcome to another exciting edition of Bridge Radio Africa with your host, Ashford, the Giant Garley.
Thank you. I'd like to also say hi to Akinan Al Phillips out of Houston, Texas. He's in the building. The Reverend Idatus Addy, my man. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Greetings, everyone watching from far and near, diaspora and in Liberia. It's such a joy to be back one more time. Greetings to these esteemed panelists to talk about Liberia's future. God bless you all. Thank you.
The one and only Dr. James T. Fisk.
I want to say welcome and hi to everyone, the panelists and those in listening and viewing land. And I just want to invite all of us to yet another explosive episode of Reach Radio with ASHFORD GARLEY Live. Thank you.
The Reverend Dr. George.
Well, thank you to all of my panelists and to you, Mr. Garley, and those who are watching. It's a pleasure to be back and to use this time to educate the Liberian people as they expect to go to the polls October 10th. So it's such a pleasure. We're We're excited to talk about the issues. We're excited to educate our countrymen back home who are expected to vote and those who are listening around the world. My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And a special guest panelist, Mr. George Williams. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate you so much for the opportunity. I want to thank the rest of the panelists for having me on the show. I appreciate the time, and I am hoping to share my own take concerning the upcoming election.
Thank
We
you.
look forward to a free and fair one.
Now, folks, if you're having a special occasion today, if you're celebrating your birthday, the wedding anniversary, we want to say congratulations and let us know how you live to see many, many more uh, birthday and anniversaries to come. If you're not feeling well, want to say speedy recovery. In the case of my cousin, A.B. Bobley, hope you recover speedily and get back on your feet very soon. Okay, at this time, we want to take a look at the political menu, and who does it better than the Reverend Idatus had it?
Thank you very much, Ashford. At this time, Liberia suffered a very tragic occurrence today. There was a major fire that happened that killed several Liberians, and something that is tragic and it's very sad for our country. And we send our love, our sympathy to the family, and hope that they recover from this hurt, from this trauma. In Jesus' name. Having said that, as you know, the elections will soon be here. And the propaganda war has definitely started. So there are all sorts of things trending in our news, which hopefully we'll be able to cover today. And then finally, we obviously will discuss who do we think best suit the leadership of Liberia, as we normally do. Thank you.
Okay, well, our hearts go out to the bereaved family for the loss of their loved ones, and we hope that they can take solace and we ask God to protect them. But Idatu, speaking of the fire, tell us what you know so far. What happened?
Well, actually, I've been trying to dig up stuff concerning precisely, what happened, but I do understand that from a friend and brother who, we have our own chat room, stated that one of the members was the president of the student body of one of the schools owned by the vice standard bearer, Grace Poir. And that individual passed, and many of the victims were burned unrecognizable. And so far, that's the information I have regarding this matter.
Well, let us go to Dr. Fisk. Dr. Fisk, when this is not the first time we've heard about such incident in an industrialized country, people learn from mistakes. While it is true that you have no control over some of these things, but something should have been done, to avoid it. We have the fire service, and what do you know so far, Dr. Fisk?
I mean, the thing is, it's not it's not what I know so far. We can just piggyback on the issue, and the issue is that once more there was something that would have averted death, but then death happened just because we've not been prepared. Okay. Once upon a time, there was a similar incident that happened in some school, and all the kids died. They burned out. Okay, and there was nothing that was done. We in the 21st century. Most of these ministers of government, including the president, all of them have the latest iPhone 15. Okay, but you cannot say that within this kind of time and age that we live in is excusable that you wouldn't have good fire trucks in the country, up to date fire trucks in the country, and people trained to deliver such services. What is this whole fire thing is something similar to what happened recently, where there was some kind of fish or some kind of sea animal that was washed up on the shore, and people are there cutting meat and eating. Whether the animal died because of exposure to poison, people don't know. So Liberia is at a state where, I mean, basically every person is not just a lord to himself, but a guardian of and protector of their own life. Okay. Now, this is what you refer to as a state of nature, basically at the most basic. That's where the country is, and you can't argue that there's a functional government in the country. And why would you continue to say you want to keep people who are not functional? Or why is it that people who are not functional want to continue to remain in power, other than just wanting to aggrandize themselves? And this is what is showing. It's tragic, and people should take responsibility. But I don't see it because we live in a culture of impunity. Thank you.
Mrs. Roberts, somebody's mother, somebody's daughter, 5 Liberians are dead today because of this unfortunate fire incident. What's it?
Firstly, I want to extend my heartfelt sympathy to not just the families, also to that community that watched in horror. And ironically, I got up this early this morning and wish something I don't do that early. I try not to, but I did. And I listened to the wailing of those.
Mrs. Roberts, are you there? Okay. Let us go to the Reverend George.
Yeah. First, my condolences, my sympathy goes out to the family that are affected, and I won't
Can you
say
hear
much.
me?
Okay, she's back.
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you
I'm
now.
sorry. Yeah, somebody was trying to call me and I didn't take. But no, I said to hear. I woke up to the wailing of the families, the community, and the surrounding communities. I'm sure as they stood in horror, watching or listened to the stories. From what I understand, that started at 11 p.m. But I woke up at 4:55, about 5 a.m. this morning, which is probably about 8, 9 o'clock Liberia time, and that's when they were introducing the story. And from the reporter, they heard they called rather the community called the fire truck, and what they told them was, "Our truck cannot go in gear." Okay. Then after the people have died, burned to ashes, they were coming. And from the reporter, the community dwellers threatened them that if they got there, they would burn them down as well. Why couldn't you come at the time when you could have done something and you're going to come now? But again, to the families, it's a tragedy to lose your entire household. Well, there were two lives saved, but two minor lives, two minors who will need nurturing. So we pray that the Liberian government does something substantial to help these two young people who will be
Thank
traumatized
you.
for the rest of their lives. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Let us bring in Reverend George. Reverend George, somebody just said something very important. Said, Ashford, the thing here is because of armed robbery in the country, people lock themselves up with the generator in there and they forget and go to sleep. And when you get up, the whole building is covered with smoke. You can't see your way out. The next thing you know, you suffocate and are dying.
Mm.
Reverend George?
Yeah. I think everybody is putting the pieces together there. I don't know the entire story, but again, we want to be careful not to politicize so much, as we agree with the family. But it's hard to do because in the 21st century, what you are describing here, generators all over the city, people are locked in, all of that can be blamed to poor management of resources of the country for over 176 years. And this is where we are. We certainly sympathize with the family and those who are affected. But again, this is why we are having this discussion to see where Liberia goes from here. You know, when I was young, there was a joke that when they call, used to call it the fire brigade. When they call the fire brigade, first they will come and see the fire, then they will go back to collect water. Then by the time they come, the whole thing is burned to ashes. That's what I heard when I was young in Liberia. But it's sad that in the 21st century, what one of our panelists described here, for people to intentionally, I don't know, I can't make that claim, but to wait that long to say the truck can move, and then right after the fire consumed everything, now the truck can move, and then you come in, it's just sad. So we're gonna leave it there for now. We'll discuss in depth, but right now we want to be able to sympathize with the family as much as possible and not to over politicize it.
Thank you, Mr. George Williams.
Yeah, Ashford, this fire situation is a personal thing. My mother is still in Liberia as we speak. I have family members in Liberia. They communicated to me the facts about this fire, and of course, my condolences to the family that lost lives. I'm relative to people like Bishop Otto Kula, Chun Kula Adi. She's my mother. She's living in Liberia as I'm speaking to you right now. And my heart breaks because if they too live all with generators. So I always like to put myself in the situation. If this news is coming to me today that my mother was in the house, we got a generator went off and this happened, myself and my entire family, we are wrecked. So I can just imagine the state that the family that suffer this loss is in. I can only imagine. Definitely, I extend my condolences. But Reverend George said it so well. A country that is 100 plus years old is dealing with this type of trauma. I really am. Words fail me, Ashford, because we are here to determine who can we select to do something about this type of tragedy.
Thank you. Okay. Reverend George, with a little over 2 weeks to elections in
Can I say something before we change the topic?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. But there are several errors that I listened to and I wish to respond to. Number one, people always talk about since 1847. Between 1847 to 1950, what did Liberia have to offer the international community in terms of quid pro quo to get development in return? Anyone want to answer that question? I just want us to understand. I just want to understand whether we understand our own history. Nothing. The only thing Liberia did was to protect its borders from international encroachment. The only time Liberia had anything to offer was 1950s as a result of the iron ore that was discovered and Firestone prior to that in 1920. So I don't know why we keep mixing up the history. So from 1950 up until now, what has the country been able to do? That's how we argue. It's understandable if other people don't understand the issues. But if we decide that we must be the ones to educate people, then we must understand the issue. There was nothing Liberia had to offer from 1847 to 1950. Okay, so when we talk about a tragedy, it's very important to understand that even if there were no gear or whatsoever the case may be, you cannot politicize the situation because we don't live in an apolitical environment. Okay, where you have a government, unless of course the government will understand that it is not functional, then you can say, well, you can't hold them responsible. So what's the essence that we will have electoral politics, enshrine or institute a government, but yet it's still in the 21st century where people are holding cell phones and driving $80,000 car. You don't have up-to-date fire, fire trucks. Every home is supposed to have a fire extinguisher. You have EPA in Liberia, the Environmental Protection Agency. What does it say in terms of carbon monoxide poisoning for people who are using generators and locking themselves indoor? So if we can just gloss over all of these things and say they're not relevant, let's not no, it's political because why? We live in a political environment. Okay, administratively, politics is also about administrative practice. It's not only about and governance is administrative. So if people are not administering the affairs of state properly, you can't say you have condolence with the family, but yet and still people shouldn't say anything that lives were needlessly lost. Those lives were needlessly lost. If all of the
30 seconds, please, 30 seconds.
if all of the proper things were in place, you wouldn't have the kind of colossal laws that happen today. And let's put blame where it should be. Thank you.
30 seconds.
And where's the young man putting the blame if he wants to be more specific?
May I have 30 seconds, Ashford, please?
Hold on, gentlemen, and the lady. I'll give you 30 seconds. Go ahead, Reverend George.
Well, I think we had to speak in context. Okay, what I said was that we will address the issue, but for the time we are giving condolences, I didn't see the need to over politicize. That doesn't mean that we will not bring it home to talk about the failures of the country. Number one. Number two, look, let's be careful. Here in the US, every home does not have a fire extinguisher as developed as America is. So, let's be careful. We know that these things are unacceptable. And you talk about 1847 to 1850. What did Liberia have to offer? Liberia had land. Liberia had people. Liberia had a place of refuge, a place to cultivate. When the American colonization society went along the coast from Sherwood Island, it was inhabitable. They came down, and Liberia became the habitable place. So again, let's move gradually and not rush into.
So I guess you never heard about the Berlin Conference and the Petition on Africa. I guess you never heard about that, right?
I heard about that. Okay. Liberia has something to offer. Liberia has land to offer. Liberia has culture to offer. Liberia has people to offer.
The Petition on Africa.
But I think these two guys are actually teetering the lines of they're both on the same side.
What was that? It was in the 1880s.
Brother, from 1857, I disagree. Anyway, let's move forward. I just disagree.
No. Every African country. Let's not mix up the issues. Every African country was a threat from being colonized, other than Liberia, from 1847 up until 1950.
I just disagree. Liberia has something to offer.
Liberia had resources and all of those things, but they were not discovered until it started with Firestone, and then with the discovery of iron ore. If you don't know that, how can we discuss?
But I just take the correction. Liberia has something to offer from the get-go.
It was not discovered. It was not discovered.
It's not matter where it was discovered. Liberia has something to offer.
It was not relevant.
Let's not forget ourselves as having the knowledge here.
Okay, guys.
What technology?
Okay, guys.
No, there was no technology by that time, but Liberia has something to offer.
So then it was irrelevant. Why are you talking
about?
Every country was still from the virgin stage. Every country was still from the virgin stage.
Reverend George, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you so much. Andrew, you wanted to chime in with 30 seconds?
Well, yes, I appreciate the 30 seconds. I am really for the issues, and I'm glad that both the gentlemen, they are speaking from a place of passion, because they would love to see the change that all of us want to see. You understand? And I believe both of these fine gentlemen are on the same side as far as the issues are concerned. Based on the way they're talking, I can sense and notice it. So we want to take the opportunity that you are giving us here on this platform to really speak to issues. Indeed, in that moment, we are expressing our condolences, but right now we are getting ready to enter into, I believe Reverend Idatu's pointed out that we are getting ready to enter into a time where we talk about one issue, then we get into who we believe should be the leader for tomorrow. And based on that, step by step, we can get.
Thank you, Andre.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, folks. Well, as we dive into politics tonight, I want to Moses Sandy, how you doing, my brother? With Dr. Fisk and I, on the outside looking in, all of these political actors Tonight we have a supporter of the Unity Party through Jeremiah Cone, Mr. George Williams. We have a stone supporter of the Unity Party, but because of according to the vision of Joseph Boycott, the Reverend Idatus added. And we also have the Reverend George, who supports Alexander Cummings. And we have our sister here, Mrs. Letty Brooks Roberts, who also supports Alexander Cummings. So,
Mr. Garley, for point of correction, CPP, because we're that close to elections, we want to keep the letters in their head.
okay, CPP, she
CPP.
supports
Thank you.
CPP. So, with just a little over 2 weeks to elections, I want to begin with the Reverend George. Reverend George, the stakes are hard. Okay, Cummings believes that he's going to win in the first round. That's what we're hearing from his supporters. George Ria is thinking the same thing. On the other hand, the Honorable Joseph Boycott believes he will win it all in the first round. What say you?
Well, I would say that Ashford, thank you for having me. A week ago, when I came to the show, I started an issue. I started prosecuting what I believe the Liberian people need to know, and that is the stark difference between the three front runners that we have right now. We have George Weah, Alexander Cummings, Joseph Walker. And I started litigating first the judgment issue that I have with Joseph Walker as a choice vis-a-vis Alexander Cummings, who I believe is best suited. And this is what I want to prosecute still. And as the Liberian people expect to go to the polls, I would say for us in the CPP, change, real change and fundamental change, we believe is loading for Liberia because we have the best alternative. And it is like no brainer when you look at what we have right now. We have the past, we have the present, and we have the future. And no doubt, a person who worked for the Liberian government for 45 years represents the past. The present is as bad as we wanted to go like yesterday. Very colossal, very dismal. Then what we left with now is Alexander Benedict Cummings Jr., who represents the future, who has a plan, who has been speaking system, From the time being with Mr. Cummings from 2017, Team Cummings for Liberia, he has been speaking system needs to be put in place. So I believe he's ready, and I believe the Liberian people are hearing him and they will vote him. Thank you.
Idatus added, uh, Reverend George just stated that the change the Liberia is looking for is in the hands of Alexander Benedict Cummings. I've listened to you, Idatus, talked about love Liberia, live Liberia, and think Liberia. I heard you talk about the arrest through uh, Joseph Juma Boycott. What say you?
Well, clearly, as you can see, when you asked my friend and brother to give a vision, he certainly couldn't, but instead pivoted to referring to Mr. Joseph Boyka as the past. But the truth remains, in the words of Alexander Cummings, the past is the best indicator for future performance. Past performance is the best indicator for future performance. So when I think on the past performance of of my political leader, Mr. Joseph Boyka, I'm highly confident because we see a man who has a stock record of advancing agriculture in this country, so much so that the late William R. Talbot recognized his contribution to Liberia, so much so when Liberia was the breadbasket, where you had Lofa as the breadbasket, Nimba, Zle in Cape Town, the advancement of agriculture in our country, where in Liberia was increasing our acreage from 2,500 to 500 by 1975. It was reported that Liberia would have reduced the importation of rice in this country. So let's talk about the last 12 years under Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. The fact remains, ladies and gentlemen, that Joseph Boyka managed the One Health program. What did that program entail? Agriculture, education, health, environment, among others. Under that program, Joseph Boyka brought over 30 million US dollars to Liberia. He also managed the richest program, the regional control for disease. Under that program, he brought $15 million to Liberia. And finally, under the Youth Empowerment Program, Joseph Boyka, the sleeper, the one who was the pork car, was able to bring 10 million US dollars, unlike this government that ate the $1 million to help empower the youth, in the words of Zoga Wilson. And if you don't believe me what I just said, go ask one and only Dr. Talbot Yensua, who worked with Joseph Boyka. So it is this vision that we want to bring back to Liberia and take it from the abyss of relegation to a place of respect under this current government. Thank you.
Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, what do you think CPP has the answer that Liberia needs in terms of change in our country?
I believe he has CPP has the answer for two reasons, or more than two, but I'll give two. First, the ticket. We have a gentleman who has said that he has listed his what and his how, and he has a young, energetic person. Liberia, one of Liberia's problems has been, like I stated last time, these concession agreements, and that, like I said, there's a TED talk on Africa with people just coming to the table just as to what's in it for me. And the people, they don't have great negotiation skills. We have a CEO, or even if he wasn't a CEO, as people want to say, whatever you want to title him, but a renowned person that worked in corporate America who has negotiated on behalf of a worldwide NASDAQ company. And he has a partner who has the legal mind. She has her own firm. She can team up with people that have legal minds to tag team these people that come to our country. And yes, we have the current corrupt government that falls into the trap as to what they can get. But she's going to make sure she crosses all of the T's and dots the I's in consultation with her partner, or the fixer one. And so we know that he has these things on the table. He says he's not going to even ask for a penny. Anything that he would have gotten, he would put into the same system that we're asking for right now.
Thank you.
Hospitals, fire services, schools, you name it, all of the crucial things Liberia needs on day
Thank you.
one.
Mr.
Thank
George
you.
Williams, you disappeared there for a minute. Are you still with us?
Oh yes, I'm with you. I'm with you
Okay,
100%.
okay. Well, help us understand, why do you think uh, Joseph Boyka is the best choice for the presidency in Liberia at this time?
You know, Ashra, I'm so sorry. I went off. I was responding to a text message. I apologize. Please forgive me for that.
You got 2 minutes.
Uh,
Go ahead.
One of the things that strike me about Joseph Boyka is his selection of Jeremiah Kuhn. You see the outfit I'm wearing, right? I'm representing Nimba County on this panel even now. Yeah, because I am Nimba County mayor. One of the reasons why I supported Alexander Cummings early on was because of someone like Ta Wongwe, who is Nimba County strong. We are very tribal. We're in Nimba County. When I mentioned Dr. Alfred Kula, the late Dr. Alfred Kula, my actual grandfather, Arthur Kula, and those people, we are this group of people where when he made the decision to go after somebody like Jeremiah Kuhn as his vice president, he struck me as a very good decision maker. And like Idatu's mentioned, I was disregarding Joseph Boyka for a very long time, but throughout Liberia's history, this man he has been consistent with his choice as far as decision making is concerned, and not interested in stealing. So much so that somebody's very reason why he is scolded today or ashamed today is because he's living off of loan. He's living. It's like, I prefer someone that honorable as opposed to somebody who is living off of government subsidies to the point where they are now fat and we got President George Oponwia, who was
Thank you.
broke when he went to Liberia. Yes, I'm gonna land right here. Was broke when he went to Liberia to be the president,
Thank you,
and
sir.
then today he is not broke no more.
Thank you, Andre. Uh, the Reverend, who's the Reverend? Dr. Fisk, I don't know if I heard my brother right. He said he's supporting Joseph Boyka because of Jeremiah Cone and the fact
You,
that
you,
Jeremiah Cone
you
comes from
heard me right. You heard me
Lima
right.
County. That's what, so. Is he supporting this man because of his tribe and not on experience and not on qualification and not on how we can change our country? Dr. Fisk.
This is why I was just reading one of your commentaries from one of your audiences, like, "Oh, Ashford take charge. This other issue is irrelevant." No, there's nothing here that's irrelevant. Okay, unless of course you're not able to connect the issues. Okay, Mr. George Weah. Every time Mr. Weah speaks, he talks about since 176 years, nothing happened in the country. I the one bringing like, no, that's not true, Mr. Weah. When you talk about the development of Liberia and its capacity to do so, that started back in 1920 and then 1950. Okay. The same thing happened in the Congo. Congo had uranium and the rest of it. But until the white people went there and used industrialization to mine those things, they were just there and irrelevant, not benefiting the people at all. Okay. Even with the exploration of gas, natural gas, Nigeria never had a single refinery for a long time, and all of the oil were exploited only because other people had the technological know-how and Nigerians did not. So all of these things to talk about, they are all very, very relevant. Okay, now I don't hear Bwaka people go much after Cummings, and I stand to be corrected, but it doesn't make any sense that Cummings, those who are propagating the issues of coming who want to use Waka when in fact we still have an incumbent. And we also need to understand the history of incumbency like in Africa,
Correct.
where it's difficult to get rid of incumbents in politics.
Correct.
So why not focus on incumbent, get incumbent out? That's the difference between a political job seeker and political opposition. Opposition know the issue and focus on the issue. Job seekers just want a seat at the table, and that's wrong for the country. Thank you.
Well, Reverend George, no, hold on, Andre. Andre, wait your term. Wait your term. You will come in. I want to bring in Reverend George now. Reverend George, Andre just told us that he was a supporter of the Arizona Commons because of Cummins' exposure to the corporate world and why he believed at the time Cummins can bring to Liberia. And he believed at the time Cummins will be the guy that will have a government of inclusion. But because his tribal band is running, and that's the singular reason why he has disassociated himself and Cummins and is not supporting Boycott because the guy he supports is from Lima County. Reverend George?
Well, I will leave it as that because you see this thing, the Liberian people who will go to the polls are listening to statements like that, of no substance, I believe. But let's talk about litigating the issue on Joseph Boakai. And Dr. Fix, with all due respect, I disagree with you. It was Joseph Boakai who, according to Bernard Ure, who orchestrated the entire process of taking Mr. Alexander Cummings to court. He started the war. He started the opposition fight. Let's not lose sight of that. To sit there and say, oh, Joseph Boakai did it. My brother Idatri said the last time Joseph Boakai was packed. And he said it is the definition of VP position. I don't know of any vice president in the world who consider the position of VP as being a park vehicle. But my brother said it here. Now he's bringing in all kinds of achievement. But that being said, on the Jeremiah Cone, we know already. General Prince Johnson came out and told the Liberian people, look, gentlemen, this thing was for Unambly. I pushed my way through for months to push Unambly aside, to push Costa aside. And we put in Jeremiah Cone because, for the singular reason, Oman Baka is old. He will not be able to lead. These are the words of Prince Johnson. And that's how we put Jeremiah Con. So they all fighting the trouble line. But what do we have to offer Liberia here? Look, when you talk about financial management, you say, oh, Bwaka is broke because he did not steal money. Gentlemen, let's get real. You work for 45 years. Do you have to steal money to be viable? Unless you are financially reckless. Your own money, you can't put it to use. You have to. So if you don't steal money, then you end up on loan, even though you work for 45 years. But let me tell you about Mr. Cummings. Mr. Cummings will believe he's rich and taxpayer don't have to risk anything. In fact, he come out and said he's not taking down from the taxpayer. He proved that by giving
Thank you.
$50,000 for a school project for which
Thank
he's
you.
being denigrated. His own money.
Thank you, Reverend George. Idatus.
But with Ashford, you're not going to give me a chance to address this thing that you did to me just now.
Your time is not there yet.
But you presenting me as some kind of tribal person.
No,
it's not.
you will have your
You
turn.
presented yourself a tribal person.
You know, I made it clear. Ashford, yes.
George, please hold on. Okay, please hold on. Your time will come. Idatus added, why not the incumbent? Why not George Weah? Why are they going after boycott?
Well, it is clear because they don't have a winning strategy. So boycott becomes the object. Unlike the Unity Party and our vision, we've given the Liberian people a rest. We want Liberia to become self-sufficient through agriculture. We want to build roads. We want to improve our educational system. The city of Monrovia is filthy in parts adjacent. Children are dying from fire. 27 children died at the Quranic school in 2019. 4 more died in 2023. Now we have death all over the city because of fire. This is the vision that needs to come forth. And all the Honorable Joseph Boyka is attempting to do is to make Liberia a better place for all Liberians. And hence, we've refused to, engage in the criticism of our opposition because we believe that they will join us, and we're hoping this will become our reality in the second round. But we understand why. It's obvious he's the next president. That's why they're attacking him. In their minds, they believe that, George Weah has lost the elections. Unlike us who support Joseph Boyka, we don't believe that right now. So we are leaving no stones unturned. We are campaigning to citizens to understand that the vision we have is not the vision that makes them into choir masters and praise singers of Muya Muya, but a vision that will bring them education so that they can give back to their country and not live from handouts. People often say Mr. Joseph Boyka lived alone. I thank God he's honest enough to say, I'm not broke. I'm not poor. I may be broke, but I'm not poor. But he's one of those that sacrificed his life. And if you're denigrating civil servants because they commit their entire life to the service of country, and that is a crime, I rather vote for such a man of integrity. If you're denigrating the Honorable Joseph Boyka as a park car, I rather vote for such a man who brought $30 million to Liberia, $50 million. And in fact, today we got CT scan and MRI. I rather vote for the man that you call sleeper. I don't want to see him when he wakes up if he's doing all of this for Liberia. Thank you.
Mrs. Lexi Brooks Rabble, just before Andrew, after her, you would come in. Yeah, come in, Mrs. Roberts.
Yeah, what is your question?
Well, we're talking about why you think Alexander Cummings is the guy over boycott, and why are you not talking about the field policy of this current government? Why attacks are going towards boycott?
Well, for me, the attacks go to both because you built. What has Mr. Boycott, former Vice President Boycott, done? Yes, he as Idatu states, or Pastor Idatu states, some of his accomplishments, be it that. But the little things with the people, how is it now you're concerned about the young people? That's something you should have done when you were in office all these years, to build them up, to see who stands next to you when it's time, when you are to exit the stage, which is this time. Who rather you running now in their spot, you should have had someone prepared that would be they would be leaning on you, or shoulder to shoulder, saying, Pape, we thank you for all you have mentored me with. This is why we have mentorship, because we know that people get feeble, or the ideas you may have had, you won't be able to implement them. but you can still, your mind, you can have those ideas, but you can still pass them on to people that are more energetic. In the state that our country lies, we don't need someone who someone's going to be pushing around. And with all due respect, when I say push around, push not physically, but pushing, because they can get there first, they will want to do it. So that's part of the disadvantage. This current president, we know that he's failed the people just by the state of the country right now. Just the other day, we had a similar situation as mentioned, with children dying. What
Thank you.
method has been put in place? From every experience, that's
Thank you,
when you
Mr.
put
Roberts.
in, you implement new mechanisms to
Thank you so
stop
much.
this
Thank you.
stuff.
I will now bring in Mr. Williams, George Williams.
Thank you so much, ASHFORD GARLEY. Dr. James Fitz mentioned something that is so key to this conversation we are having. In Liberia, incumbency is such a strong word. And let us not fool ourselves and think that incumbency does not matter. As a matter of fact, right now, some of us are still on the edge of our seats as far as this election, and is it going to be something that will be rigged or stolen? In 1985, we saw something like this happen in real life. So, with that being said, we are speaking on behalf of Joseph Boyka because he is the only person who can defeat George Weah right now. We're not talking fairy tales. We're not talking wishful thinking. We are talking what is actually possible right now as we speak. So when people throw words around and they try to campaign on this platform and make it look like this is the case, oh, you are a tribalistic person, this, that, and the other. That was an awesome decision from Joseph Boyka when he selected Jeremiah Kuhn. It was a very good decision. It brought me on board. As far as I was always for Alexander Cummings from 2017, but we want somebody who can make a decision because they want to win and they want Liberia to come out of this primitive state that it is in. Liberia is primitive, my people. Let us pay attention to the idea that we are the oldest country in the African continent, and we are the least in as far as the 21st century is concerned. Fire just broke out. We can't put it out. Are we being serious right now? My folks, the thing is very simple. We are looking for somebody who can move George Weah because right now Liberia is a failed state. Liberia is in a place and we can't be coming at politics
Thank you, Andrea.
Like it's something wishful.
Thank you so much. I will bring in Dr. Fisk to balance this audio for us, and then the Reverend George. Dr. Fisk.
Okay, look, let me use something that even George Weah will understand. Let me use a football analogy. Every person, every political leader who's seeking office in Liberia should be advocating that everybody holds a red card. Give George Weah a red card for poor performance. Okay, that is what everybody, the Cummings, the Boyka, everybody should have in common. They need to institute a red card system in Liberia. Every Liberian needs to have a red card now, and they go on the march and hold the red card and say, George Weah, go, yeah, your red card, because we are understand red card. That's why Liberians are supposed to be innovative about taking this guy from power. Because the longer this guy stays in power, the worse it is for the country. So let's understand the strategy. We say, okay, let us go against each other and let lead George Weah. Let's take him and pack him in the corner. Let's assume for 1 second Mr. Cummings wins and he goes second round with George Weah. Then where he come to do the Boyka now? Then that when you come make peace? Or let's assume Boyka people win. Boyka win and in a runoff with George Weah, then win. Then that when Boyka come to make peace with Cummings. So this thing doesn't make any sense. Okay, this is why I keep talking about the difference between political opposition and political job seekers, because opposition understand that there's a bigger issue and needs to be fixed for the welfare of the entire country. Job seekers, they are only advocating to have a seat at the table. Okay, and it's sad. What makes you different from George Weah if you have reduced your intent for the country to just being a political job seeker? okay, about what Cummins has to offer and what Boyka has to offer. These are things I will be discussing on in my next set of deliberations. Thank you.
Reverend George, help us understand, put this phrase into context. At the weekend, we heard Honorable Boyka saying he believed that these elections will be free, fair, and transparent. In the absence of that, there'll be no country. There'll be chaos. What is your interpretation of that phrase?
Well, it's simple. War, violence, chaos, destruction of lives and properties. Look, this is why we believe we in the CPP, Mr. Cumming, is the best alternative for Liberia. What did Mr. Cumming do? Mr. Cumming took the election commission to court. Okay? Mr. Cumming once took the election commission to court. Now, as though you were reading my heart. This is the two credible threats that we have now to deal with. You see, we know Judge Weah has to go like yesterday, but the travesty is to replace Judge Weah with just anything. Anything meaning Mr. Prince Yerube Johnson, who has issued threat and said that any attempt there will be shooting, you will kill us or you will die. These are unquote. You will shoot us or you will die.
You are not quoting, my man.
Please do not interrupt the man. That's not how this
yes.
runs.
Oh yes.
Thank you.
You will shoot us or you will die. It's in the statement. And then with that, while we are grappling with that, Mr. Boyka himself comes out and said, don't try it. If you cheat, there will be no country. Are you kidding me? What happened to the legal system? For those who are quote unquote talking about system, I do not see any country where cheating election is a predicate for war. And that's why they want the Liberian people to believe that if there's a cheating, then there's enough predicate to wage war on the nation. I reject that. And this is why we're saying, look, we have the past, we have the present, and we have the future. So yes, we agree. And the record situation is perfect for that. But we cannot replace the present with just anything with war threat.
Thank you. Idatus is Ambassador Boyka so desperate for power that he's ready to send our country to war and chaos in the event where he doesn't, if he doesn't win these elections. Besides the fact that he also has Prince Johnson by his side. You just heard that from Reverend George.
So first of all, Reverend George misspoke, and he needs to correct himself. Ambassador Boyka did not say war. People infer to mean war. And let me tell you why I stand by that statement he made. You see, the Liberia we know under President George Weah is not the Liberia we used to know. So the Honorable Boyka lamented 6 more years under this leadership. Liberia will be in the dark of drug infestation, proliferation of ghettos, criminality at the highest. We've become a drug hub. Our passports are being sold. We have been denigrated internationally to a reputation that is disrespectful because of the seals of our international passports. That is the Liberia he's cautioning us against. And the fact remains that the opposition, such as the ANC brothers and sisters who, have used the age, the health, now they are fear-mongering via war. But the truth remains, I stand with that statement. Nobody wants war, but they're going to make it as war because they do not see their way clear as far as vision is concerned. That statement was a statement of lamentation. Is this the country we want, Ashford? Where you can go home, you got to lock yourself in a jailhouse to sleep at night for fear of armed robbery when our president tells us to get CCTV? Is this the Liberia we know or grew up in, when the young children are selling water on the streets, can hardly go to school? Is this the Liberia we know today? Just 5.5 years under George Weah. Kush is in the country. People are marching in the street, celebrating they want Kush. Is this the Liberia we know? Hence, the Honorable Vice President is absolutely correct. If we allow this guy this president, another 6 more years, it is lamentable. Will it be the Liberia we know?
Thank
Or
you.
would that be the end of the international respect that we used to enjoy as a people? One nation, indivisible, under God, with liberty and justice
Thank
for
you,
all.
Idatus.
Thank you.
And we're not bringing Dr. Fakes as he balances out both sides from his perspective. Dr. Fisk.
Yeah, I mean the thing is very clear. At the end of the day, you have a situation where people keep insisting that okay, fine, um, let us not talk about George Weah because I guess he's irrelevant. But the sooner people understand that George Weah needs a red card, the better for the entire country. Okay. Um, so Mr. Bwaka may have made a statement. Was that the first time a statement like that, resembling that, has been made in politics in Liberia? We said the same thing about Charles Taylor. We said this very same thing about George Weah. If George Weah become president, blah, 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 blah. People heard that stuff. Okay. But I've said in response to that, that nobody can do anything to Liberia that the citizens of Liberia have not approved of. Okay. And what sense does it make to give the popular mandate of the people to someone only because they cheated? Do you know what it means? You are robbing the country for 6 years. Okay. So it makes sense that the electoral process is conducted not only in a fair manner, but in a free manner. Okay. And, I lament the fact that people say, we have democracy because there's an election. No, election is just one means of accountability. Other means of accountability, people should be put in jail for not doing their jobs. Like what happened? There was a fire, people got killed. Okay. And it's as if to say we don't have a functioning government. Okay. So why will we continue to leave those things aside? Okay, and say, okay, well, Cummings is a corporate manager. Okay, Ellen was a corporate manager too. We saw what Ellen did.
Right.
Joseph Boakai has so much experience, but we have put PL 480 that tell me otherwise. So let us focus on Weah and get him out. Thank you.
Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts, 2017, following the elections where George Weah became president, and some of the supporters of Ambassador Boycott were not happy. They wanted more investigation go into the results. Ambassador Boycott is on the record. He said, not one person blood will be left on my head. If this man won the election, give it to him. It's the same Boycott the common supporters are saying wants to bring war. How do you respond?
Well, I wouldn't say the coming supporters say he wants to bring war.
You just heard it from
People,
your partner. You just heard it from your partner.
who's
George
my
Doe,
partner?
Reverend George Doe said that, man.
I didn't ask you to interrupt, Mr. Williams. Please.
Yeah.
Mhm.
No, but again, and that tells you there's some desperation. How do you go the time that you should have been rowdy, like I said, where you were fresh out of the oven, you had all of the energy, you had all of the know-how, you had all of the contacts, you had everything at your disposal. Where we have seen in recent years, you travel abroad and we see no high-powered delegation with you. Just with all due respect to us in the diaspora, just few people following you. So now that it has come to this it just feels as though I have to do this before I die. And that is not the aspiration you should have. That's a good aspiration, but that should be at a when he was 40 years younger. Yes, I want to be president. So he could have even ran against Ellen, though he was vice president, he had that option. Why now, when the country is so in this dying state, and you using words such as that are inflammatory? You say that you would dance with the devil, all these kind of things, and you think that's a good way to do? But in all fairness, to our people, we shouldn't even be worrying about these three candidates. I mean, we should, but when it comes personal, you should be thinking about your economy, the health
I'm
care.
on the radio. I'm
Um,
on the radio.
our Supreme Court is a biased court. That's something we don't hear
Thank
nobody
you.
speaking on.
Thank you,
What
Mrs.
what what are
Roberts.
they going to do to change so that we have justice? Justice is blind, not
Thank
not
you so much.
partisan.
Thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Roberts. Okay, now we'll hear from Andre and then we'll go to the telephone lines. Mr. Williams.
And I'm so glad she ended her discourse that way, because her compadre, Reverend George, mentioned that the people who actually favor Jeremiah Kuhn and Prince Johnson, we are warmongers. We want to bring in war in Liberia, and we are saying we're going to bring war. And then he also had this sentiment that stated, why don't we go through the process of the courts? I hope the young lady heard him say that while she was making the statement that the courts are also as failed as the state of Liberia. Untrustworthy, not something that we're actually able to rely on for results. That what's the thing? One of the things that I want to stress is this thing that Dr. Fitz stressed earlier. The incumbent and getting rid of the incumbent is a very serious thing. The incumbent and getting rid of the incumbent is a very serious thing. So we need to focus our energy. Liberians, if you really want change, if you really want to see Liberia come out of the ruins that it is in, then you need to focus your energy on making sure that George Mane Oponwia is not president of Liberia when this election is finished. And the person who's standing in line is Joseph Boyka. Hands down, Joseph Boyka is the man that is standing in line, ready to actually dethrone George Weah and give him that red card you speak of, Dr. James Fitz. The idea is this. I am simply coming from a position where Joseph Boyka makes a decision to include.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm going to land right here. He makes
Thank
a decision to include somebody who everybody is calling devil. Everybody's calling, not
Thank you,
everybody. A part
Thank
of
you,
my
Andrew.
is calling devil, calling warmongers, calling. Come
Thank you so
on.
much. Thank you. Well, folks, if you just joining us, this is ASHFORD GARLEY Live on British Radio Africa. This program comes your way twice a week, Mondays and Tuesdays, 7 Central, 8 Eastern. The telephone number to call, just in case you want to be part of the show tonight, is 267-248-5295. There are other political party enthusiasts out there. If you want to make a point for your party, just contact us, and then you will have your chance on this big stage. As we wait for people to begin calling, I want to take 2 minutes from Reverend George.
Yes, thank you, Ashford. You know, the hypocrisy
Hold on,
of...
Say that again. Were you saying something?
You skipped me.
I did not skip you.
No.
Oh, you spoke first, Dr.
You spoke, yeah, you didn't skip
I
it.
did not skip you. Come on, Fisk. Go ahead, Judge.
Anyways, the point is that for me, I am here prepared to discuss the issue. Ladies and gentlemen, let us not pretend. We have two credible threats. One from Prince Johnson saying that if they try anything, we will put people in the street that will be Arab Spring, you will shoot, you will kill us, or you will die. Those words are there. And let's not deceive the Liberian voters. We had a second credible threat from Mr. Boakai from a video, an audio from Grand Bassa where he said, don't try it. If they cheat, we have no country. Thank God for our brother who trying to spin it in his own interpretation. Meaning Boakai is saying, oh, if they cheat, we have no country. The country will have all the drugs and everybody. No. And you see the arrogance in the Boakai camp. Joseph Boakai is the only one can replace George Weah, can remove George Weah. With what? These are elections. It's nobody's take until the final vote is cast. This is the arrogant that made Joseph Boakai and his camp to destroy the CPP when they were supposed to go to party primary and they wanted to coronate Joseph Boakai and they said, Cummings should just accept to be vice president. They don't like the political process. Okay? These are not my words, very Latu. I did not misspeak. There are two credible threats and you cannot run away from it. One from a war general who has told us purposely we want Joseph Boakai because we will run the show. And now he's coming out to say you will kill us or you will die. That's a credible threat.
Thank you. Thank you, Reverend George. Let's go to the telephone line. Samuel Tamba, hello.
Yeah, hello, my favorite admirer, the giant. Yeah. I want to say thanks to you, and I also want to say thanks to those on the panel. Like, I want people to know the statement from Honorable Barker didn't say war. He was referring to the Liberian people with the suffering that you people are going through now. If you gave this country to George Weah through raking the election, through supporting, there will be chaos. There will be chaos. He was not saying he's going to bring war. Why people who are educated sitting on your platform misinterpreting
Thank
the
you.
statement from Honorable Barker? It is kind of a baffling people.
Thank you, Samuel.
Let us stop the communist people need to preach the communist agenda and leave Honorable Barker. They can see it's glaring. The Liberian people are resolved. Rain or shine, they told you we are sorry.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for calling. Okay, that's the voice there of Samuel Wood to the man who balances it out. The doctor, Fisk.
Yeah, thank you, Ashford. I mean, for Cummings to become president, he has to unseat George Weah. For Boakai to become president, he also has to unseat George Weah. That is the common denominator between the two of them. And when you keep talking about, oh, well, we have two credible threats. Okay, get rid of the first before you go to the second. That's a better strategy. Okay? So that's one. Number two, people keep talking about, oh, well, the country is going to be chaos. Is Liberia peaceful? Is peace the absence of war? Peace is when you can go to sleep knowing that the next morning you're going to take care of your business. You have the responsibility of your job to take care of yourself and your family. That's not what is happening in Liberia. There's complete chaos in that country. If an animal can wash up on the seashore and people can just go and start cutting to eat, we don't have a functioning government in that country. The person who's the incumbent right now, are we saying that Barker is worse than we are, who gets in the plane while the nation is destitute and go and put his family first? Go watch his son playing soccer? I don't think Barker is that bad. I'm not a Barker supporter, but I continue to say this. If Weah is removed from power, one good lesson that Liberian politicians will learn is that if you come and become president of Liberia and decide to take the people for granted, you become a one-termer. If there's anything good, no one is saying Bouaka have been in a very corrupt system, so has his vice president. Okay, but the alternative is George Weah. Why can't we understand that? That's politics 101.
Oh, you did.
Before you become communist, before you become president, you have to move George Weah. You don't have to move Joseph Waka. Move George Weah first. Concentrate on that. Give him a red card. Thank you.
Thank you. I will bring in Mr. Herbert Frisk, my national security professional. Mr. Fisk.
Yes, sir. Hi guys, how y'all doing? The thing is,
Good evening.
the last time I was listening to this guy who took over Burkina Faso, he's the youngest president right now on the planet, or Ibrahim Touré. And when he spoke in July during the Africa Russia summit, he said something striking to me. He said that one of the reasons he took power was African leaders keep singing the same song. Okay, the ones who are president, which bring the same rhetoric to the people with no results. Okay, and because of that, the West pull us like puppets. You know what I'm saying? So what am I saying? Like the doctor said, like there is in a chaotic situation. You know what I'm saying? You got a president who leaves the country for what 2 or 3 months, and he really don't care. So if worse comes to worse, you understand, the military took an oath to defend the constitution of our country.
Thank you.
So I would expect them to step up. God forbid, if something should happen, you know what I'm saying?
Thank
To
you.
put things into perspective.
Thank you, sir. Okay, we'll go to Minnesota. The last four digits 7242. Tell us your name, please.
Thank you, Mr. Fowler. This is Elvis from Minnesota.
Go ahead, make your point.
Thank you, and hello to the panelists. Yes, I'm in favor of what Prince Johnson said. If you want to bring war, then you bring war. But there's a lot of people still waiting to get back at him. So it'll be a perfect opportunity. At his age, with his gut, being like a pregnant woman, he can better cover his jacket. If you think he's able to fight a sustained war and then try to run away, there's nowhere for him to go again. So let me bring him over. A lot of people waiting for him. And it's funny when people try to interpret what Joseph Boyka says on the show. Though we have the illiterate one, who don't know how to speak English, but Joseph Boyka has to have 99 interpreters for him to, for us to understand what he said. The man said, if they rig the election, there will be no more country. I've never seen a country that has stopped existing because there was a rigged election. Never.
Thank you.
Only war can tear countries apart, not rigged election.
Thank you
for having me.
We want to go to Delaware. The last four digits of your number, it's Delaware, 4688. Tell us your name.
Yeah, Ashford, it is probably saying
Hey, hey, what's up, my professional colleague? Welcome to the show, my brother.
Yeah, and let me also say hi to my friend and brother from the news department. The other planet, man, it's fixed. Congratulations, it's good to have you. But I just want to contribute briefly to this discussion. You know, look, I follow Liberian politics religiously, and from what I see, what is happening in the country, I just want our colleagues in the CPP or the ANC specifically to understand that, unfortunately, Mr. Cummings is one of the least candidates. We've been around since 2016, yet the name Alexander Cummings is not gaining traction in Liberia because he's very unstable. He says one thing, he does the opposite. He claims that he came to strengthen the public sector. But when you look at his inner cycle, he's surrounded by individuals with scathing characters. That's why he's making no progress. He talks about fighting graft. What is he doing with ability behind?
30 seconds, please.
What is he doing with ability? What is he doing with Richmond? What is he doing with Toga McIntosh, who was linked to the passport fraud? All these criminals surrounding him. What is he doing with them? Now let's come to the election. This election is between two presidential hopefuls. It is Mr. Weir and the Unity Party. That's what the data shows.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Sandy.
Thank you.
All right.
Sure.
We have a 267 number, the last four digits of your number, 8123. Tell us your name.
Yeah, Mr. Garley, this is Maurice from Pennsylvania.
Okay, go ahead, make your point, sir.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Garley. You see, when a statement requires interpretation, you can only interpret your own way. You cannot impose your interpretation to it. When Mr. Weir said, President Weir said, we are not reaction to sedition, you not exist. The sedition had their own interpretation to it. The unfortunate thing is that the ANC people running with it more than even the CDC people. A brother will bring war. I don't get it. And the ANC minister on the show to say, we don't know of any country that already election has gone war. Really? You don't even got to go far. What about Liberia? Liberia is the classical example in 1985. Look, this election is between DNB and President Weir. If we all agree that President Weir is the baddest person, is the worst person, there's no way you can say President Weir is better than DNB. Under no condition. As much as I don't support Mr. Cummings,
thank you, sir.
But there's no way I can compare Mr. Cummings with that of Ambassador President Weir. No day.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Well, folks, with that, we want to come to the end of tonight's production, and we'll begin taking closing statement, and then we will come back tomorrow and reconvene. At this time, we want to begin with Mr. George Williams. 2 minutes. Give us his closing statement.
Listen, I thank you for hosting us. I thank you for hosting me, and I really appreciate the time. But this thing is coming down to the wire. We are October 10th is the election. We want people to go out and we want people to vote. I always favored Alexander Cummings from the time he came out that he wanted to be president in Liberia. But one of the things that we want to do is we want to get rid of George Weah. George Weah is destroying Liberia. Liberia is a failed state. I will say it one more time. Liberia is a failed state. And we need to replace George Weah. The red card that Dr. James Fix just mentioned, it needs to be issued to George Weah, and we need to replace him with someone that is a viable candidate right now as we speak. And that person is Joseph Boyka. Joseph Boyka has a strong team with Jeremiah Kuhn. I know many people want to claim that Jeremiah Kuhn, Prince Johnson, all these people that are around them are rebels and they are warlords and all this other stuff. Let them keep their mindset. But the reality is Liberia is split down the middle if you want to think like that. Because your hero is my villain, as far as I am concerned. The person you might consider to be your hero appears to be my villain. I look at them like they too need to be shot down, dead in the streets, right? So since we have this peace thing going on right now, we want to choose the democratic process. We definitely want to go to the ballot box and vote. And we want to highlight this one last thing. The statement is there should be no rigging of election. All these other outside threats
Thank you.
are specifically because the possibility is there.
Thank you, Mr. George Williams. Thank you so much. At this time, we'll get closing statement from Reverend George. 2 minutes, please.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks to our panelists and those who are listening in Liberia and abroad. Again, I would like to close that we have three choices, and the best is the future, who is Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings Jr. And if we are serious to remove George Weah, we cannot replace him with the past, Joseph Boakai. No way. So as you vote, you think about that. Why do I say that? With Mr. Alexander Cummings Jr., we have real and fundamental change that is coming. Look, because unlike previous government officials who lose their pockets before they think about the people, Mr. Cummings is rich. He has demonstrated it. So taxpayer money will not be squandered. Mr. Cummings has the temperament. So we will have sound judgment proven by the time he was taken to court. He remained cool and calm and allowed the legal process to play out. Never called for any violence. Mr. Cummings has the utmost managerial leadership skill. So good governance will not be an issue, will be certain. Mr. Cummings has the international experience, exposure. So Liberia will not be abandoned. And this is why our best choice to replace George Weah is Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings Jr., who truly represents the future of Liberia. Thank you for having me. I will continue to make my case, and we will not ignore the threats that are coming from Joseph Boakai with alignment with Prince Johnson. Librarian Prince, you watch out. And the brother said Marquis.Gawier. Maybe you can compare Prince Johnson with Marquis.Gawier. Let's talk about association. Thank you. Vote number 4 as you go on October 10th. God bless.
Thank you. Well, folks, again, if you just joining us, the supporters of Cummings, Unity Party, Joseph Boycott, the supporters of George Weah. Listen, this platform is here for Liberia and Liberians. You can chip in a little something. The Cash App is on there. The Zelle is also on there. The librarian will say, any dead water can put a fire. 267-248-5295 is the Cash App and Zelle. At this time, we want to bring in our brother, the Reverend Idatus Addis, for his closing statement.
My fellow Liberians, the Honorable incoming President Joseph Iman Boyka, under the banner of arrest, has given us 6 pillars. He wants a macroeconomic stability of our economy, wherein the National Bank will assume its role in leading the countries to stability as opposed to a finance minister who could not account for $25 million under George Weah. The Honorable Joseph Iman Boyka wants to do good with the health issue as he did before. Under his administration in the last 12 years under Ellen, Joseph Iman Boyka facilitated the coming of a CT scan and MRI machine in our country today. Under that initiative, the One Health program, he was in charge of what you call the Regional Drug Disease and Control. He brought 15 million US dollars to Liberia. He also headed the Youth Empowerment Program, in which Mr. Eugene Nangwe was part of that reality. Liberian youth had $10 million. We didn't have the proliferation of drugs and ghettos in our country today. And that is why the rule of law is highly important as one of our fourth pillar governance. We've lost our civility. We want to establish a new form of governance that has respect among the Committee of Nations so that men like Alexander Benedict Cummings can take his case to the Supreme Court on facts such as why the election commissioner did not demarcate or redistrict the territories after the census, and he lost that case. That's not the kind of country we want. He should have won that case because you cannot go for elections and do not know who's voting from Oro or who's voting in Congo Town or what's the population in Sinkor. Legitimately went to a Supreme Court that denied him that victory. We want to go to court. We believe in the rule of law. But certainly, if the cap doesn't fit you, don't wear it, in the words of Bob Marley. So if you would not steal the elections, why are you worrying about the consequence? If you will not steal the elections, why are you worried?
Thank you,
More
Mr.
than the
Hyde.
bereaved. Thank you kindly.
Okay, I want to bring in Mrs. Lexi Brooks Roberts as she gives us her closing statement. Mrs. Roberts.
Yes, I just want to put my timer on. Thank you. Good evening, and thank you all for being here. Thank you, Mr. Garley, for having us to speak to our Liberian people. As we go into the polls or go to the polls, we want you to be conscious of what matters to you. In a time of election, it's not only about those that are vying for the positions, but what have they said that will impact you the way that you want, such as your economy, such as healthcare. You witness your fellow Liberian citizens die, such as Cynthia, um, what's her name? Cynthia, anyway, Gifty Lama, Mabutu Nyimpa, Princess Cooper, Odell Sherman, and the list goes on. Some that we don't know their names because of the marginalization, that no one made their case public. There's nobody in society, whereas everybody should be somebody. The Supreme Court that should serve people only serve the elite and leave you out. When you're going to the polls, think about you. Forget about boycott. Forget about Cummins and CDC. Why they are the people you need to vote on, but the issues that matter to you is what you consider first before you go to these people. So we have a senator who we have two senators, Mrs. Nyomli Kanga Lawrence, and we have Mr. Um, Dillon, who are in the House with Mr. PYJ, could not stand him. They didn't want him to even talk on the Senate floor
Thank
because
you.
they so were vexed with him. My time is not over.
Your time is
I
up,
still
Mr.
have 6 seconds.
Mrs.
Mr. Gali.
Thank you.
So I have my time. You see, you took my time. But anyway, Liberian people, your choice. You make the wise choice. What matters to you. Thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Okay. Well, at this time, we want to bring in Dr. Fisk as he concludes tonight. But before then, I want to say hi to my friend and brother, the professional colleague, Mazula Gisi is in the building. Famata Boyman is also here. Samir Tama, thanks for your contribution tonight by calling in. But calling is not only the thing now. We have the Cash App and Zelle on that. My big sister never disappoints me. Mrs. Agnes Barkley Young is on here from the loving and beautiful state of PA. Jacob Daniels is also in the building tonight. We see Gaia Reed. Gaia, how you doing, my brother? It's been a long time. And I also see, what's that name? Wonoke Da Wonoke. How you doing? Sure you having a great time tonight. Natana Day Boy, hello and welcome. Emmanuel Bro, hello also. Dr. Fisk.
Yeah. So thanks thanks for those who listen and watch the program today. Let us understand something. Mr. Weah has always been a soccer player. Those who voted for Weah voted for him because he was a soccer player. Even now, those who support him do not necessarily support him because what he has done as president, but what he achieved in the past as a soccer player. So Weah understands one thing: red card. Okay, give him red card. At the end of the day, I agree that Boyka may be bad or Cummings may be bad, but we have to understand that for Cummings to be president, he has to move George Weah. For Boyka to be president, he has to move George Weah. So we have to understand that. So the next important thing is to understand, okay, people, the biggest argument of Cummings is that, oh, he's going to be so good for the country because he has experience. Ellen Johnson had experience, but she was bad for Liberia in the absence of a system. Okay, let's talk about Joseph Yima Boyka. Liberia doesn't have an agriculture problem. Liberian farmers have always been planting food and they were undermined by PL 480. Liberia has an agro-industrial problem. So if Mr. Joseph Yima Boyka, with all of his experience, doesn't understand it, then it's become a problem for me. The reason for that is that the post-Weah Liberia needs a lot of money that you cannot generate from continuing to do what Weah did, go around begging. You're supposed to be able to generate money internally. That is by constructing factories in Liberia that will create jobs and decentralize Monrovia, for instance. So if people are not thinking of these possibilities, then I'm sorry. Okay, but long story short, the most important focus for Liberia is Weah. Thank you.
Okay, now as we close tonight, I want to give a bonus. Okay, but just before that, I want to say hi and thanks to the Apostle Joseph Durrell. My big brother Blancande Jackson is also in the building tonight. Abdullah Dukle. Now, 1 minute each from everyone on tonight. I will begin with Andre George. 1 minute. Who will be Liberia's next president?
Joseph Yima Boyka. He will be president of Liberia. And the reason he will be president of Liberia is because we saw what he actually was able to pull as far as population is concerned. George Weah had similar crowds when he was actually running in 2017. Joseph Boyka is now showing the same type of spirit, the same type of energy. I'm excited about Joseph Boyka specifically because of what I told you from the beginning of the show. Jeremiah Kuhn is my guy. I mean, we stand behind Jeremiah Kuhn because he's one of our own. And I'm not being tribal. I'm not being anything. But if a relative of mine was running for president, if you don't expect me to brag about it, something is wrong with your mental faculty.
Thank you. Reverend George, give us 1 minute as we close tonight.
Well, it's clear that Mr. Mr. Alexander Benedict Cummings Jr. is the next president for this reason. Look, I've often said that crowd politics is not what's going to determine this. For example, in the crowd you see, you don't know the number of people who are underage voters, who are not qualified to vote. In the crowd you see, you don't know the number of people who are unregistered to vote. In the crowd you see, you don't know the number of people who are uncommitted to vote. They come for rally and they go. But here's what's going to make Mr. Cummings the president. He had done enough groundwork. In a ground game, we target voters. In a ground game, we get commitment of people who say, I will vote for you. In a ground game, we galvanize registered voters. This is what will make Mr. Cummings the next president of the Republic of Liberia. So we are not moving. We are all in a crowd game. And I can guarantee you on Sunday, October 1st, there will be enough crowd. But we are focused on ground game. God bless you.
The Reverend Idatus added. 1 minute, please.
Well, thank you. Well, Liberians are certainly committed to voting for number 2. This is why they aren't willing to put their future in a candidate that has no record of governance, but they're comfortable with a past that it's been tried, true, and tested, that has a solid record of living his life for the greater good of his country. And they are discouraged and disappointed in the present George Weah, who has infected our country with extra killings, rampant corruption, poverty is at its rise, We have lost our international dignity to the lack of civility in our own governance. So listen, Mr. Boyka is poised to be the next president of Liberia. Make no mistake about this truth. Liberians know, as you can tell by the rain that came down on September 17, they came through that rain to make it very clear that in spite of hell or hot water, we are resolved. And that is why they've stated, Papa, we are sorry. We made a mistake. Hence, if past indicator is a
Thank you.
determination for the future performance, Joseph Boyka has that in his books. Thank
Thank
you.
you, Doctor. Since my sister here claimed that I robbed her of 6 seconds, please take 90 seconds.
Thank you, Mr. Garley. But thank you for giving us another opportunity, because I definitely know that Mr. Cummings is going to be the triumph. He's going to triumph over this election. He's like the dark horse. Why it is true that we, you know, we all have our rights to choose who we want, but we want to look at what's better for our country. One of the issues that I left off is the immigration. We have a young lady who deuce, and I said deuce with a D, who deuce the bar, the Liberian Bar Association. And we have a gentleman who was on the board, who was in the bar, Juan Budike. That case, what's become of it? We have so many issues that are still lingering, but this man has is that he has compartmentalized the issues that he needs to tackle. And he's, like you said, he's not going to be going for people because of their service to the country, but the people that are culpable for the denigration of Liberia. Thank you.
Well, Dr. James T. Fisk, the people, I think Mr. Boyka was supposed to go to Bapudu, and he didn't go to Bapudu. He went to Nigeria. When he came back and visited Bapudu, the people in Bapudu said to Ambassador Boyka, we just want to see you walk. We want to see you get down from your car and walk. And that's all they were asking for. They said, we don't want food from you. We don't want money from you. We just want to see you walk. He got down from the car. The people were shocked. They say, you are our
You are
guy.
the man.
You are our guy. Not only that, they brought 9 country devils, all female. They are saying they will stay out until these elections.
Mm-hmm. And the thing with dance with the devil,
Man,
they
please
dance.
do not. I mean, if you didn't talk about, we are talking about Dr. Fix him. That's not how they do wrong, though. I beg you, bro.
Yeah, man. We're brother George.
We'll dance. We'll dance. We'll
Dr.
dance
Fix,
with the devil.
what we saw
Country devil.
last Sunday, Sunday 17th,
That's right.
when it came out, you saw people. Whether you see 2 reasons why you cannot overlook Joseph Boyka.
Mm.
Take it from me.
Tell
You
us.
grew up in Liberia. Stop, Andre. Liberians don't usually come out on Sundays. They will stay home and get ready for church. Secondly, Liberian is afraid of rain. Despite the rain, despite Sunday being God's day, those people came out and the numbers were there to prove it.
And
Take us
tell you
home.
also female devil, country devil. So that terrorism. Okay, I'm sorry.
Take us home, please.
Okay, I mean, let's be honest. If politics was logical, the person who's going to win the election would be Benedict Cummings, not a Cummings person, but let's call a spade a spade. If politics was, because he's not associated with all the kind of steam that you have with the United Party and the rest of it. If the electoral process is about people understanding that they have been hit hard, okay, and they need an alternative, then Joseph Boyka wins that election.
Hands down.
Hands down. If there's a system that people say, well, we don't care about what has happened within the last 6 years, then I'm sorry, it's going to be an election for George Weah. So it's very important for the opposition to keep sending that message that we have messed up. And the only way to do it is to issue Mr. Weah a red card. I thank you.
Well, folks, again, we'll be back tomorrow on this platform. And as we go home tonight, please allow me to borrow the wordings of the wise man. If there's no enemy within, the enemy outside can do us no harm. What people think about you and the possibility of your dream, It's none of your business. Let them think about it. Some call him the mastermind, the brother who doesn't eat iron, but he's definitely stronger than the lion. Africa's media doobie doo extraordinaire. Jira setu pa yege, jebon flora na jako me ochreji. As for the giant, that now you know me Garland. Have a good night, folks.
Good night.
Good
Good
night,
night.
guys. Next time, bring the female that we want to see some of that, please.
You're so bad.
Are the CPP people? Are the CPP?
Bring some female devils so we can see them.
You want to see the female that way?
Yeah, I never seen a female.